Jiro here for Umbra Games with a review of Death Stranding, played on PlayStation 4, currently as an exclusive, coming soon to PC. Before I get started here, I'll say I'm not going to talk about story spoilers. You're going to see some out-of-context video, again, without content spoilers. But if you consider the type of equipment or the fact that there's combat in this game to be a spoiler, then this review probably isn't for you. Death Stranding has had a huge cryptic marketing campaign over the last couple years, coming from Hideo Kojima's mind, the creator of most notably the Metal Gear Solid series, as well as a few other games here and there. Just so you know, I'm not a diehard Kojima fan. I played Metal Gear Solid on PlayStation back in the day when it came out, and Metal Gear Solid 2 on PlayStation 2 shortly after its release as well. That's about the end of my experience with his work. I always meant to go through the rest of Metal Gear, but you know how that goes. Leading up to its release, whenever anyone would ask me questions about what the game was, I would describe it from what I observed as a post-apocalyptic event that occurred and the veil between life and death was diminished somehow. And Norman Reedus carries around a live human fetus in a pod. Since it's not yet born, it functions as a bridge between life and death. And this bridge baby, or BB as they're called, allows Reedus' character Sam Porter Bridges to see the otherwise invisible creatures that have invaded the world. Now, I wasn't too far off, but it wasn't quite entirely accurate. As such, in this post-apocalyptic world, Sam Bridges is responsible for helping reunite the cities of the former United States by hooking them up to a network called the Chiral Network, hopefully bringing them into the UCA as well, the United Cities of America. The game takes place in a smaller version of the US. Obviously, you're not trekking across thousands of miles throughout the game's course. You stack things up on your body, including a back harness, as well as attachments to your suit, trying for a balanced arrangement with the weight, and yeah, you keep your balance by gripping your harness by using L2 or R2, right side or left side, or a combination of the two, and making sure you don't trip over rocks and lose your cargo, damaging it in the fall. And unlike most normal postmen, you actually care about what you're carrying. Now, I keep seeing mentions of a genre called a walking simulator, which, first off, I think this is a ridiculous title for a genre, and secondly, I'm not sure if people maybe just didn't play far enough. When you start the game, you have the ability to make some ladders or some rope anchors to descend cliffs. As you reach each new destination and start bringing people online and leveling up each facility by delivering cargo, you learn new schematics, enabling you to build exoskeletons and structures like bridges or post boxes and vehicles to help you on your journey. Now, I don't think it's a spoiler, but one advancement is the acquisition of zip lines, allowing you to construct a method of travel unimpeded by terrain and outside threats. Not only that, but there ends up being a decent amount of stealth and combat sections, as they're called for in the story. Now, again, I don't want to spoil any story here, but there are times where you're in a war zone for all intents and purposes, and you have to shoot your way out. I think a walking simulator is used derogatorily with this game, and I really don't think that's fair here. When I compare this to games like Breath of the Wild or Red Dead Redemption, for example, Death Stranding isn't covering kilometers to get to a mission. The kilometers and finding the best path and avoiding danger is the mission. But that doesn't mean you're just aimlessly walking around or just setting a waypoint and watching a cinematic view while the game travels for you. When you make a delivery, you're rated on a handful of criteria, and your currency reward is simply likes. As you get likes in each of the 5 categories of the star you see, you'll level Sam's stamina, the ability to carry more cargo, and keep better balance. To build structures and equipment, you use resources, the main source of which is finding them spread across the world as you travel. This includes things like ceramics, metals, and chemicals. You can take them to a distribution center and recycle them for use in creation of new equipment. At any time, you can press R1 to send out a pulse that will show you all cargo tags in the area. This includes those materials, and often lost cargo either from another player you'll never see on your server, or simply with the name of a specific outpost or city. You can also use L1 to go into compass mode, which will pop an icon for your destination in your view, and you'll also be able to go to the map and place waypoints or series of waypoints to help you chart a course. These waypoints will also show while in compass mode. A quick touch on the asynchronous multiplayer aspect. Once you've brought the chiral network up in a particular region, you'll be able to see a handful of other structures created by other players. When you find players' stuff that you like in particular, you can make a contract with them which seems to lock it into place every time you play. Not only can you use these structures, but you can also help upgrade them and repair them, and other players will do the same for you. In fact, the top point of your star is likes gained from other players liking your sign, structures, and gear you've placed in the world to aid them in their travels. Now, not to go too deep into the story of it, but we'll just say that most rainfall is actually exceedingly damaging to things you place in the world, and also your cargo, so helping other players keep up their structures can be vital. The rain on cargo will actually deplete the containers, which have a percentage of health, and non-gear containers can be repaired in a couple of ways. If a container is destroyed, and you're still facing those harsh environmental threats, the cargo itself will start taking damage. Pretty much all cargo will take damage if dropped, but some is also classified as fragile, where rough terrain can damage it. Even further, some cargo is sensitive to vibrations, so transporting it in a vehicle will also damage it. There are a few survival mechanics to the game, including keeping Sam's boots in good shape, managing stamina both in the current amount that drains based on your walking conditions and weight carried, and also the longer you are from resting, your max stamina will slowly decrease. You carry a canteen of Monster Energy drink that automatically refills slowly when it touches water, converting it to more Monster, and it can be used to refill your stamina. New boots can be made anywhere things can be fabricated. Sam also has a blood meter, which serves as his life meter, that'll drop from taking hits. For this, you can eat cryptobiotes you find scattered through the world, or you can carry blood bags that will auto-refill when you're low. And you will want something, because there are actually threats to Sam as you journey across the US. These generally fall into two categories. The first is a group of former porters called mules. They stake their ever-growing territory with a circle of scanners, and as every piece of cargo in the world is tagged, if they pick up on cargo you're carrying, they'll come after you. At first, you have nothing but a rope to stealth in and knock them out, but you eventually get more options, all for story reasons have to be non-lethal. Mules won't kill you either, but will also knock you out and take all of your cargo before dumping you outside of their camp. The second threat is less friendly, and commonly referred to as BTs. These are the shadowy creatures from the world of the dead, and you can tell when you're going to run into their area by the presence of dark twisting lines in the sky above. These are often accompanied by an upside-down rainbow, which for some reason is very unsettling, even more so when you find out that it's missing the blue. Again, when you start the game, you're defenseless, relying on stealth and holding your breath to not be noticed. Your bridge baby, or BB, will point the satellite dish-looking device on your back in the direction of the nearest threat. There are 15 episodes in the game, and a few of them end in a boss fight, often unique in that Kojima way. Remember, some of the boss fights in Metal Gear, it's not just deplete health, but learn the mechanics. There are two categories of cargo deliveries you can take. One is specifically for Sam to take. These include main missions to progress the game, as well as some side missions, as some locations are brought up on the grid optionally above and beyond. Then there is the repeatable cargo category, and these missions are just to help with the 5-star facility rankings as well as additional rewards. It took about 46 hours to get through the main game, but I did level up a few facilities to 5-star to see what would happen, as well as spent some time focusing on transportation infrastructure for quicker deliveries. The Platinum Trophy for this game requires upgrading all facilities to 5 stars, which, I'm looking at it, is probably about double the time I put into the main story, so I kinda shelved that. For the story, I'll admit I had some concerns going in. I mean, everything is way out there. But the story neatly ties pretty much every loose end, has a ton of twists and turns, and I can't name a lot of games offhand where I've sat down and read every single email and database entry I've gotten whenever I've gone to a save point, just to get more information about the world I was playing in. The degree to which all the story aspects were thought out and the mythology of the world is pretty mind-blowing. The depth is insane. There's so many levels to the story as well. An analogy from the simple one that the press keeps pulling out, Make America Whole Again, to our need to be acknowledged and praised. It never felt preachy, but more just lying below the surface if you wanted to take the analogy or not. Even the Make America Whole Again didn't feel like a political push at all, but more of a call beyond that and the general loss of community and connection that people everywhere seem to be facing. I will say there are themes of fatherhood present that will likely hit you a bit harder if you're a parent yourself, but I don't think they'd miss you if you're not. I guess to sum it up here, there's a lot of depth and analogy to absorb here if that's your thing. Graphically, there are so many landscapes in the game where I would just stop and take it all in and start snapping some screenshots. Music will play during specific journeys at certain vistas, and the score that was curated does such a great job of magnifying what you're viewing, especially as it plays right after a particularly stressful section of travel. The draw distance and weather and light all just play together very nicely. All of the game's main characters are scanned in for full facial movement and emotion, sometimes to quite a photorealistic level. Most of the characters are simply holograms in the game though, and appear without a lot of detail. Which takes me to the actual acting of our main characters. Kojima assembled a dynamite cast for this, with all parties seeming to give it their all. Even the tongue-in-cheek things you can do to Norman Reedus and the fact that he winks at the camera, all the quirkiness just kinda worked for me. The dialogue is well written, but there are moments where things may be explained perhaps a little too much, but honestly, with as many curveballs as they throw, a bit of oversimplification doesn't hurt, and some things needed to be explained more than once. There is some in-game sponsorship, as mentioned with Monster Energy and even AMC channel sponsorships. This didn't really bother me at all, because if this is what they needed to do to get this game made, then more power to them. Overall, Death Stranding just has a lot of pieces that come together really well. It's not often that I find myself unable to go to bed while playing a game, staying up way later than I should, and then anticipating the next play session eagerly. Obviously, the biggest hook was the story. The world Kojima created is fascinating. There's upgrades, there's exploring and optimizing paths, there's gathering loot, dealing with tense moments, sometimes against unseen foes, mixed with some good boss design, some careful combat, a complimentary musical score, and honestly, just something different than what we're used to playing. I actually went back and forth a little bit, not quite sure what genre category to put this game in. I kind of disagree that it's a new genre per se, and likely mostly closely aligns with what I call open world mission procedural. Rated as such, Death Stranding gets an 89 out of 100 on my 0 to 100 scale, where 50 is an average game. This is Jiro for Umbra Games. Thanks for watching.